Hello and welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast. And yesterday, I spent the day in London watching Dortmund play their big cup final against Real Madrid. Today, we turn our thoughts from Champions League to Championship as we assess Derby's current squad and go through who we've got, who we think we should keep, who we think we should sell, who we think Paul Warne will keep around for the season. So joining me today to talk through it, two of the regular lads. You should know them by now if you've been here before. Firstly, we've got Vic Singh. How are you, Vic?
Good evening, lads. I'm all good. What a contrast. We're going from Champions League to Championship.
I don't know. With Matson's pass last night for Real's second goal, I don't think the difference will be too much. What about Jamie Page? How are you, Jamie?
Well, I think we give Dortmund a good game, to be honest. Emre Can, was he full rig up front? I'm not sure he's much cop. I'd definitely rather have James Collins. So, yeah. And Champions League, give us 5 seasons. We'll be there.
5 seasons for the Champions League. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's us getting called delusional immediately. So we're going to go through the squad in number order. Derby haven't updated it on the website, so I'm going to have to try and work it out as we go. Try and remember who's gone and who's not. But essentially, we're going to go through. We'll say whether we'd keep them, whether we think Warne will keep them. And we want to know what you guys think as well. So if you are watching live, let us know in the comments. And even if you're not, let us know, and we'll have a read through after it's come out as well. So, I mean, if we go in number order, first player we've got is number 2, Kane Wilson. I feel like that's a pretty obvious one. Still a young player, still developing. He developed a lot throughout the season. I thought towards the end he'd really matured. And I think JB described him as raw early on in the season. And by the end of the season, he was a more reliable player. I mean, Vic, it's a pretty obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got to keep Kane Wilson. Like you said, he's young, he's energetic, he sort of fits the mould that Paul Warne wants. And we know he's only going to get better from here. So, yeah, it's a must keep for me. And he can play a number of positions as well, which is really beneficial. So, yeah, definitely keep him.
Jamie?
Yeah, I agree. I think he started as a bit of a raw prospect. We didn't really know what to expect. And as the season went on, he kind of found his feet in this Paul Warne team. I think defensively, he was better towards the back end of the year as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he grows defensively. We all know that he can get his head down and beat a player. But a few times defensively, he was caught out at the start of the season. I think actually grown into that kind of duty as the season went on. Vibes off the pitch as well, always smiling, happy guy. He's a kind of player that you want in your squad. So yeah, for me, he has to stay around.
Yeah, and I think Warne will agree. I mean, he was one of Warne's signings, wasn't he? And he was one that Warne was very excited about when he did bring him in. So yeah, Kane Wilson will definitely be around next season. If we play a back 5 in the Championship, I think out of all the ones we've got, I mean, obviously we'll get to the rest of them. I think he's probably the most suited one as well. Now we move on to Craig Forsyth, our number 3. Triggered an optional, I don't know if it was an optional or mandatory 1-year extension. It was triggered anyway. He's going to be here next year. His full 11th season as a Ram, which is crazy when you think about it. But Vic, I mean, again, he's triggered an extension. Sell is a ridiculous idea because who's going to pay for a 34, 35-year-old who's had many surgeries? But he's a useful option, isn't he? He's a great lad to have around. A few of the players came out and said, how good he's been over the course of the season, and we need a few players like that. So Fozzie, same boat?
Yeah, definitely. I think, but like you said, he's got no resale value because of his age. So you'd have to keep him around. But he's sort of aged like a fine wine. I think as his Derby career sort of gone on, he's just seemed to get better and better, especially that season in League One. Last couple of years, actually, he's been really good. He's been a Rolls Royce of a defender, loyal servant to the club, and his experience could be key. I think if we are looking to have a younger squad, we do need a bit of experience in there. So Forsyth is definitely a keep for me.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's someone that I'd like to see stay. We've obviously talked about the resale value. I mean, unless someone crazy is going to come in and offer a quid for him, then I don't think he's going anywhere for any amounts of money. We'll obviously get onto it later, but where does he fit in? Is he a fourth choice centre back? Is he an option at left back? Potentially. So he's probably going to maybe take on the Stearman role that he had during his time here. Maybe he'll get a few more minutes, but someone that deserves to stay around. And I'm happy that he's going to be around next season, because I was really worried that we weren't going to get to say goodbye to him at the end of the season. So if it's his final season, hopefully it's a good one for Craig Forsyth.
Yeah, Jim and Tim in the comments have agreed with us so far, which is a great start. But this is where disagreements might start, because we're on to our number 5, Sonny Bradley. It's been plain sailing so far, I think. But I think this is one of the more contentious ones, because I personally would happily let Sonny Bradley go. I think we could get a better player than that. I think we get a younger player than that. I think he got exposed by players with pace. I know he had a good end to the season, but every time we played against someone pacey, he got torn to shreds. And he really struggled to deal with them. I know, well, it was rumoured in sort of mid-season that he was very upset that he wasn't getting playing time, was trying to potentially try and get a move out of the club. And now we're here at the end of the season and we're moving up a league. I think we need better, personally. I think Nelson can do it. I think Cashin could do it. But I can't see Sonny Bradley stepping up. If a player with pace runs at him, he's screwed, basically. That's the way I see it. And there's a lot of good players in the Championship, and especially some of the teams that are coming down, they will rip him to pieces. That's the way I see it. Vic, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I'd quite happily sell him as well. He just comes across as someone that maybe upsets the apple cart a bit. I don't think his attitude maybe reflects the rest of the squad. I might be reading too much into it, but for me, especially when he got that red card at Northampton, I think we can't afford to have silly mistakes like that in the Championship. We know what the standard of this league is going to be. It's a lot bigger, a lot better than what we remembered a few years ago. So I think with Paul Warne, I think he'd keep him if he's going to play a back three. But like you said, I think there's better out there. I think Nelson and Cashin can make the step up easy. So if we were to get another centre back in, yeah, I'd 100% sell Bradley. I just don't think he's what we need at this moment. I think he's good for League One, but for the Championship, I just think it's probably a cut above him, really.
Jamie?
Yeah, he's not a starter in my opinion, and he's not going to be on minimal amounts of money per week. So I think that money could be better spent elsewhere. I think he kind of redeemed himself after the red card. Obviously, he scored quite a vital goal in the run-in. But yeah, I just worry that potentially teams will know how to play against him. And I don't think that's necessarily pace. I think that's actually getting in his ear, studs down the back of the ankle or whatever it might be. And suddenly Sonny Bradley's game, well, it's either a red card or he just completely loses his focus. So yeah, for me, I don't want to see Sonny Bradley starting games in the Championship. If he was an option off the bench, I wouldn't be massively disappointed about it. But I do agree with you, Jake. I think there probably are better alternatives out there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we've got to remember going into this season. I think a lot of people have said, I've seen people say, if we let certain players go in certain positions, we've got nobody. But that's kind of the point of a transfer window, is that you go out and, you bring new players in. And I think if we look at it and go, if we let him go, we're down to like 2 or 3 centre halves. Yes, but we've got an entire summer to recruit someone better. And I'd be very surprised if we let anyone go if we hadn't already got something in the pipeline. So the way I see it is, with pretty much every position that we've got some good players, but we could always improve in every area as well. And I think, yeah, like you said there, Nelson and Cashin will definitely make the step up. They're both quality players. Whereas Bradley, I'm just not as sure. I'm really not as sure. I mean, Jim's put in talking about leadership, but I don't know if I necessarily saw that last season. I saw it a lot from Nelson. I saw it a lot from Cashin. I don't know whether Bradley gave me that. And I don't know many leaders that had, throw their team under the bus by grabbing someone and headbutting them right at the end of a crunch game, knowing you're going to be out for the next 3 games. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, whichever direction Paul Warne goes in, I'm sure he'll get it right. But personally, I'd rather we brought someone new in, which takes us on to a very easy one, Eiran Cashin. Or is it easy? Brighton submitted a bid which is apparently north of £5 million. Now, that is a lot of money. Eiran Cashin obviously coming up into the Championship. He's played at this level before. 5 million would provide a healthy rebuild for Derby. We could, invest in a lot of different areas for that, bring in a lot of good players. But he's, people have said he's the future captain of the club. So, Vic, what direction would you go in? He's clearly going to stay from a footballing perspective, but if money talks, then who knows?
Yeah, like you said, if it's purely from a football perspective, we've got to build the team around him. However, I think anything north of 7.5 million, I think I'd have to cash in on that, because I think for the long-term vision of the team, I think it would be able to strengthen the squad a lot better with it. So, Yeah, obviously we'd love to keep him, but if a silly offer comes in, then it's hard to say no, especially in our position. It would be wrong to stand in his way because I think he's earned that as well. If he does make a move to the Premier League, then I think we shouldn't really stand in his way and we'd be able to use that cash elsewhere. So maybe we'll have to cash in on Cashin.
You made the joke twice in 1 minute, Vic. That's poor.
That's
That is
because I'm a
poor.
legend, that's why.
That is
He gets
shocking.
away with it. Yeah, I think for me, it's about the price tag, isn't it? And it's about the fee that comes in. I tend to agree with Vic, but we all know on this podcast I'm massively deluded, and I think that we could, if we kept Cashin and had a good transfer window. Why not? Why can't we dream? Why can't we be at the top end of the Championship? And if you are, then you want players like Cashin in your back line. So would love to keep him. I personally think from a Warne point of view, maybe, and well, in a Cashin point of view, maybe he gives us another season. Maybe we see a few loan signings come in from Brighton as a bit of a favour to kind of solidify us in the Championship this season. And then he goes with our best at the end of this season, similar to how Max Bird left. Potentially that happens, but I think let's just enjoy him while he's here because he's a tremendous footballer, and I think he's going to be one of the best centre backs in the division. I think he can make that step up.
Yeah, and you got to think he's going to have one eye on playing for Ireland as well. Obviously, he hasn't had a call up for the senior team yet. They've got some decent players in that position that are of a similar age, playing in the Championship, playing in the Premier League. And to be honest, from a completely unbiased perspective, I'd say he's probably up there with them. You know, having watched him against some better players, especially when we play. I mean, obviously Liverpool last year, he kept Darwin Núñez quiet, which, you know, I know people laugh at Núñez in the Premier League, but when you look at his quality against some of the players that we have, I mean, Will Asula played in that game, so that says a lot. You look at the quality of some of the players we have, and yeah, it makes you realise how good some of these players are. So yeah, like you said, Cashin could definitely make the step up, and it'd take a silly offer. So let's hope he stays. Which takes us on to Tom Barkhuizen, which is I don't really know. His stats were better than expected, I think, last season. Ended up with over 10 goals and assists. He had a couple of problems with injuries throughout. I think he's always a good option. He tends to make an impact off the bench. He's got a bit of pace. He can get in behind. And he's got the ability to pull something out the bag, I think, when you really need it. He played probably his best football as a number 10, didn't he, Vic? Especially against Bristol Rovers. He completely ran that game. I know we've talked about it on here before. He was amazing that day. I mean, again, it's an automatic extension that's been triggered. So it's obviously not a club decision. They've not decided to extend it this time. It's something that was just in his contract. I don't really know about Barkhuizen because Warne doesn't seem to rate him. I mean, Adam, who's on here, has the theory that Warne really just doesn't like him. And sometimes it does feel like that a little bit. But where do you sit on Tom Barkhuizen?
I think I'm on the fence with him as well, to be honest. I think sometimes you look at him as a player and his demeanour doesn't really let off what we think we've seen. Like, it could be, when we look at him playing, he looks like he can't be bothered sometimes. And sometimes you think, so do you want that sort of player here? But then his stats say differently. I think he's a good option to have in the squad at Championship level. A starter, probably not. But like I said, he can offer different things. He can offer playing up top. He can play on the left side if he wanted to. He can play in that number 10 like he did at Bristol Rovers. For me, I think if a decent bid come in, maybe like 1.5 million, something like 1 million. I might be ambitious here. I'm being ambitious, I know. But
look at 200,000.
I'd take anything, to be fair. Like if a decent offer coming for him, I'd sell him. But it'd be good to have as a squad player in the Championship. So keep him if no one wants him. But if a decent offer comes in, I'd happy to sell him.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd have to get rid. I'd have to sell, probably sell at any cost, in all honesty. I just think there's better players out there. I think there's better players that are available on a free transfer, that are moving on from Championship clubs, potentially even League One clubs as well. And we always talk about players that have dips in form or show maybe a good game 1 in 10. We talked about Corey Smith, and I think Corey Smith for me was definitely in the same boat as Tom Barkhuizen. They'd show up maybe 1 in 10 and you'd kind of get a glimpse of maybe what they could offer this Derby team. But I think taking the step up, I just don't think he's got it. And I think if you're a senior player, you don't want to be sitting on the bench. You don't want to be watching other players play. We knew when he came in that he didn't want to sit on the bench. We knew he didn't want to play right wing back, left wing back, whatever that might be. So I think he would cut a frustrated figure. So for me, I'd move him on and I'd try and get somebody out there that's potentially going to give us a bit more in terms of quality and a bit more longevity, hopefully, as well.
The only thing that swings it for me is that he's a player with pace and he has the opportunity to be a match winner and he's got the ability to be a match winner. Because I think that's something that we don't have a massive amount of. And I think that's something that's quite hard to get hold of. You know, he's played in the Championship before. He can turn up and do something. I mean, for some reason, everyone's got us predicted to come bottom 4, bottom 5, which, you know, I mean, maybe the season will tell a different story and our signings will tell a different story. But I can't personally see that. You know, like we said before, we had a team of academy players and we ended up coming mid-table and only went down because we got one of the biggest points deductions ever. So, you know, if we invest right and bring in some decent players, I can't see why we can't, you know, touch mid-table and push for that. And I think we need players like Barkhuizen to do that, because if you need a moment, he's one that can bring that moment. You know, you hit a team on the break, you've got his pace, you've got a couple of other players that we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a moment. And yeah, it could scare teams. But yeah, I think I'm with you guys, probably on the fence, but I think I'm leaning more towards keep at the minute. Then we've got Mendes-Laing. I mean, this is an easy one, isn't it? We might as well just do this in 2 seconds. Yes, Vic?
Yeah, keep him 100%.
I think keep him, but we can't put the same expectation on him making the step up. I don't think we're going to see the same Mendes-Laing. I think he's going to be more out of games than in games. And I think the worry is that the fan base will go, well, you got X amount of goal involvement last year and we're at Christmas and you've got 5 or 6 or whatever that might be. So I want to keep him, but I don't want to put the pressure on him because he is old. He's getting older. He's playing a lot of football. And I think towards the end of the season did go off the boil a little bit. And that's potentially why he didn't win the player of the season. I know he got our player of the season. Of course he did.
Well, he also got League One PFA player of the season, 25 goal involvements, which is one of the highest in Derby's history. So yeah, I think he did all right. I think he gets a lot of criticism because he's good. And I think that's it, because he's so good, he gets held to a different level as other players. That's what I think, personally. I know, Vic, you've unmuted, which makes you think you're going to say something.
I was going to say with Mendes-Laing, I think it's important to look at his career and realise that he's not really had a home anywhere, but he calls Derby his home, and I think that's going to get the best out of him. So I know Jamie said we shouldn't really expect him to play like that in the Championship, but why not? I think he can do it. If he can do it that easy in League One, I think in the Championship he'll flourish, just purely for the fact that this team is built around him, but he feels comfortable, he feels at home here. So I think Mendes-Laing's going to have a cracking season next season, if I'm honest.
Jamie, you going to say something?
No, I'm just listening. I mean, the thing that we got, when was it? A couple of weeks ago, is that we always agree on this podcast. So this isn't me actively disagreeing with people. I actually do believe this, but yeah, I think he's obviously been a talisman for us, and he's been a really good player. But my worry is that potentially there's too much pressure just put on him. But hopefully, what we can do is we can go out and get other players that can kind of take the pressure off. That's the hope.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, Derby's a weird club, and I think we have quite a strange fan base in a way that we tend to slander a lot of our better players, and we've always done it. Every time we've got a better player, probably David McGoldrick aside, they always get criticised, always get criticised. And people that work hard get all of the praise and they get all of the adulation every time. So, yeah, I think we've got to get behind players like Mendes-Laing. When you get behind him, that's when he thrives. So let's go into the next season and treat him like he says, like it's his home. And let's get the best out of him in the Championship. Next is Jamie's favourite player, Connor Washington. You see, I think he falls in the same bracket as Barkhuizen. He had a lot of injuries last year, but again, he's got that experience. He's got that pace to get in behind. He stretches the pitch. I think, you know, apart from when Dwight Gale came in, I don't think anyone else did that all season for Derby. And you could see it made a difference straight away. You can play balls over the top. We love a long ball. And when you've got someone who's a willing runner who can actually run, it makes a massive difference. Vic, what do you reckon?
See, for me, I've never really been impressed with Washington. I wasn't buzzing when he signed. I haven't really seen a lot. I mean, I agree with what you say in terms of him stretching play, and he offers something different to Collins. But for me, I just don't think he's what we need at the club. I think, if I'm being brutally honest, I think we need to sign a whole load of new strikers. For me, I'd happily sell Washington. I just don't think he's what we need right now, and I didn't think he was what we needed last season either.
Yeah, I agree. I think we know my personal views on Connor Washington. Look, he works hard, but I think there's been players down the years for Derby that have worked hard and they've not cut it. They've not cut it from a quality point of view. And I think he falls into that bracket. I think he falls into the bracket of Tom Barkhuizen for me, where I said that he should go, but I think he's probably lower down the pecking order. And I think the worry for me is if we retain James Collins, I know we're going to get on to James Collins shortly. If we retain Collins and we keep Washington, I really worry about the strike force, because if we're bringing in a main striker and that striker then gets injured, you're putting a hell of a lot of pressure on the likes of James Collins and Connor Washington, and I just don't think they can cut it. So, for me, I'd move him on. However, is that possible? Who knows? Who's gonna pay a fee? Who's going to take on what would I imagine would be quite a hefty weekly wage?
Yeah. In fact, to be honest, I'd be surprised. I mean, if you look at the team that he came from, they don't exactly have bags of money. So yeah, I'd be very, very, very surprised if Connor Washington was on a big wage. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if we move on to Liam Thompson, another very easy one. Another one with an extension triggered in his contract. Young lads, makes sense. And Vic, he's going to stick around, be a good squad player.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've got to keep Thompson. I think I know we say he's one for the future, but I think his time's now, especially with the lack of options we've got in midfield at the minute. I think we can really fit Thompson in. I think he impressed last season. I think Paul Warne's really keen on him as well, just because of his energy. But we've seen his quality at this level. Bournemouth and Fulham come to my mind straight away when we were last in the Championship. So we know he's got the quality at this level. I'm more than happy to keep Thompson.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. I think he's probably going to get his chance. He's the final player that we can probably sing he's one of our own, because those players have all gone out the door. But yeah, really impressed with him before. Obviously, the injury, I thought Peterborough away was one of his best games last season. And then we look at the season that he had in the Championship, and he was man of the match against Bournemouth and played really well in some big games for us. So yeah, really hoping he can kick on. And get a bit more game time. What I'd like to see is, I know that we're obviously going to be linked with Ebu Adams throughout the whole summer, but I think for Tomo, he needs a couple of players in there that are a bit more brawn, a bit bigger, a bit stronger, that he can just kind of buzz around. And we always say do that kind of ratty work that he does so well. So yeah, big season for Liam Thompson, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely will be. And I think this is when he needs to stake his claim, doesn't he? He needs to go out there and prove that he deserves to stay at the club for longer. He's certainly done well last season. Now he needs to step up to the Championship, sort of bring back that form he showed, like you said, Bournemouth, Fulham. He played so well in both of those games. So yeah, he needs to do it again across the whole season. Next one's another contentious one, Vic. It's Callum Elder. Now I think, again, he was another one. He had a terrible injury, didn't he? He had a couple of injuries throughout the season. He sort of started off pretty well, and then he came back into the team sort of mid-season, made that horrible mistake against Burton. I think he had 2 or 3 games where he looked massively out of it. He really didn't look like a player that was even League One level, but he picked his form up when he came back in towards the end. I mean, that assist against Bolton as well, it's a good ball, pretty decent ball from a corner. Who knew he could take corners? So yeah, he's an interesting one. Again, he's another international. I know he's only played like 1 game, but he's another international. He's experienced at this level. I think, to be honest, I think Warne will keep him just because he's so experienced at this level. He can play left back. He can play left side of a back three. I'd probably keep him, to be honest. I don't think we can move everyone on. And at the minute, he's at least a good option at left back.
Yeah, and like you said, with Elder, again, I wasn't really that impressed with him last season. But looking at the options that we've got, especially at left back, we've got Fozzie, who will probably play a bit part role next season. And we're not sure what Sibley's stance is at the minute. So you'd imagine that we'd probably keep Elder. Like I said, he's got the experience at this level. He's a steady player, and I think he's a steady squad player at best. So maybe it'd be good to keep him around. He's probably one of the more senior lads in the team as well. So, I mean, if it was up to me, I would probably sell him on. But I can see the plus points to keep him, so I think he'll stick around.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm on the fence, if I'm brutally honest. Tim Allen in the comments has put, would you put him over Fozzie? And I think that's probably my thoughts, that I probably would rather see Craig Forsyth come in over a first choice left back than Callum Elder. Personally, that's my opinion.
Wing back,
We also, yeah, I think so. It's tough. It's kind of I'm not shouting from the rooftops that I want Craig Forsyth to start or even come into the team as for a prolonged period of time. But I just think with Elder, he obviously had that injury, and when he did play, I just didn't think he kind of pulled up any trees. And I know it's hard to do from left back, and I know you'll talk about, well, you need experience, you need players that have been around the block. But again, there are going to be free agents. There's going to be players that we can get that have that credibility and have that ability. So I'm probably on the fence, but leaning more towards saying if the right offer came in, or if we can offload him, then yeah, we should make use of that and say goodbye.
Yeah, I think the only thing that goes through my mind, Fozzie, I think he's reached a point now where he is a centre back. I think he's had one too many injuries in one too many areas, and I'd be very concerned if, like we said, a player with pace runs at him. I think Elder's still in a good position. I think it was the Portsmouth game, and I thought he looked fantastic in that game. I thought he looked really, really good. And, those are the sort of games we're going to have next season, teams with that sort of quality, if not more. And I think Elder's got that experience, in that area. So, yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one with Callum Elder, whether he stays or goes. I think he's on the longest contract of anyone on the team as well, or joint longest. So it'd take us wanting to let him go for him to go, which will be an interesting one. But on to Tyrese Fornah. Now, he was a strange one. I mean, a lot of stuff came out about him having potential personal issues outside of football, and that's why he sort of vanished off the face of the earth for a little while. And I thought at times he showed flashes. Bristol Rovers at home obviously went on to set up the winner for Mendes-Laing with a great run. But we didn't see that much of him. And a lot of the time his decision-making seemed a little bit erratic. He's obviously played in the Championship before, albeit for a team that got relegated, which doesn't bode well. But, he's not really played a lot. But again, if it meant more space for others, I'd probably let him go. If he still can't get his head in the right place and he needs a fresh start, I'd probably let him go, not just for us, but for him as well. What do you reckon, Vic?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it just hasn't really worked for him at Derby, as if there is that personal issues going on or whatnot, for whatever reason he's not really got into the squad. Maybe he just needs a fresh start from the East Midlands altogether. Again, like I said, we saw glimpses of what he can do, albeit at League One level. Championship, again, is going to be a different kettle of fish. And I think if we can get better out there, then we should. So I think with Fornah, I think it might be best to cash in on him, not just for us, but just for probably the betterment of his career as well.
I think for me, he probably needs a loan. I wouldn't get rid of him because I think we've bought him based upon the player that he potentially could be. For me, I don't see him playing or being close to this squad next season in the Championship. However, I do think he could go to a League One club and flourish, hopefully, like we said, if he gets his head in the right place, and maybe that's what he needs to do. I think technically he's a good footballer. When you look at him, when he made his day, I think, was it Peterborough that he made his debut? Yeah. So I remember Peterborough when he came on, I just thought, he's got a bit about him. He's a drop of the shoulder. He's got quite a bit of finesse about him as a midfielder. And I think he's probably one of those players that if he plays multiple games in a row, he's probably going to grow and actually bed in. I just don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do that for Derby County next season. So for me, I'd send him out on loan, send him maybe to the other end of the country and just tell him to get his head on football and see what happens, really.
Yeah, and we've just got to hope whatever happens that his career can go back on the up as it was before. But if it is with us, that's great. And I think, like you said, he definitely showed flashes of brilliance. He's just got to get it consistently. Maybe, who knows, he might have a very good pre-season and like Liam Thompson last season force his way into the conversation. So we will see. Can he perform against Matlock? That's the question on everyone's lips. Very tough opposition. And that leads us on to Joe Ward. And Joe Ward's an interesting one because I wasn't impressed with him, to be honest. For the majority of the season, I really wasn't impressed with him. I thought, obviously he had a lot of problems with injuries early on in the season. I don't think he was as quick as I probably expected. I don't think he carries the ball very well, especially for a wide player. In fact, he hardly carries the ball at all, but his delivery is great. And we've seen that, occasionally he does have a good shot on him as well. He's a strange one because I don't think I'd play him at wing back or at full back. I don't think I think he's probably our third choice in both of those positions. But as a winger, I thought he was decent, but I don't think we'll end up playing, him as a winger. So I don't really know about Joe Ward. I don't really know whether he'd step up to the Championship, especially with better defenders against him, especially better attackers against him, because he really struggled defensively. What do you reckon, Vic?
I think I'd keep him just purely for the fact that, like you said, he's a dead ball specialist, and I think if we're gonna sort of centre our focus on scoring a lot of set pieces this season coming up, you'd need someone like that in the team. I think we've lost Horahan, we've lost his set pieces now, so we need at least one player that can at least take them. I don't think he'll start, so I think he'll be a squad player. I think it'd be good to have around just purely for that fact that he can offer something different as well when he does come on. Not a wing back in my opinion. However, I think it might have been the Portsmouth game. There was one game where him and Wilson linked up really well, and I thought, it was Portsmouth. Yeah, so like that partnership could work in the future as well. For me, I'd keep him as a squad player, and of course for his dead ball ability as well.
Yeah, I agree, and for the fact he looks a little bit like Beckham as well. Of course, he needs a nickname, something Becks. Not sure what to put in front of that, but yeah, I think. Did he fulfill his potential? No. When he left Peterborough, I think there was a couple of fans on their side that were kind of glad to see the back of him, which sometimes is a jealous thing that happens on social media, and we're probably jealous of doing this. We're probably guilty of doing the same as a fan base when players move on from us. But yeah, didn't really kind of set the world alight, and I don't really know where he fits in. However, he is versatile, so if we need him to come on at right back, right wing back, or in one of the winger positions, then I think he could do it. He could probably even come on as a 10 as well, potentially, just in that 10. I mean, he can play anywhere, Jake, can't he, really?
If we have Joe Ward in the 10, we're coming 24th, mate. Let's just put it that way.
I'd be surprised if we play a 10, to be honest.
Yeah, worst case scenario. But yeah, I don't know why I'd want to keep. I think there's going to be certain players that I don't know really why I want to keep them. But for me, it's just screaming keep at the moment.
Yeah, I think he was one. He came in with a lot of hype. Obviously, had that good game against Matlock. I know we were joking about Matlock earlier, but he did genuinely play pretty well against Matlock, and that kind of everyone had high hopes and high expectations. And I don't think he really delivered. Those 2 penalties in 2 games still sort of live long in the memory. Would have been promoted long before we were if he hadn't decided he wanted to murder someone inside the box 2 games in a row. So. Yeah, he's an interesting one. Again, I won't be too upset if he stays. I think he could be a good option. I'd be concerned if he's starting. I think we could definitely get better, but that's just football, isn't it? Next one's another very easy one, I'd say, and it's Ryan Nyambe. Can play in a back 3, can play as a wing back, can play as a full back. Very solid defensively, very, very solid. It made me laugh on FIFA when I had a game as Derby the other day, and I looked at Nyambe and it said his attacking work rate was high. Which made me laugh a lot. They've clearly never seen him play. But yeah, brilliant defender. Seems a really good guy. He's going to be in this team next season, isn't he, Vic?
Yeah, definitely. Again, like we said, if we are going to stick with the back to Cashin and Nelson, and if Wilson does play right back, at least we've got Nyambe as an option. He's a solid defender. He proved that last season. I think at Championship level, he'll make that step up. He's played in here before, so he's got a bit of that experience as well. Yeah, so he's a solid option to keep, and I can't see him leaving, to be honest.
Yeah, for me, versatile. Potentially, we'll see him right back in games against tougher opposition where we have to keep in shape, and potentially he has to go and take care of a tricky winger or something like that. So yeah, hopefully he can get back fit. I think a couple of the players that we're on the fence about have had injury problems, but with Nyambe, he has had injury problems, but we saw enough from him to know that we need to keep him here. So yeah, hopefully he can stay injury free and kind of nail down a position in the team, or just be that experience and that player that we can have when we're maybe going away to the likes of Leeds or the likes of Burnley or somewhere like that, I guess.
Yeah, to those massive clubs. We've also got Blackett-Taylor as well. I mean, he's a strange one. I mean, the answer is going to be yes, isn't it? Because we literally just signed him. So it'd be very strange if we suddenly decided, I don't fancy him. I still don't really know where he fits. I don't understand where he fits in this team. If Paul wants to play 3-5-2, it's great, but Blackett-Taylor doesn't have a position in that. He's not a wing back. He's not a striker. So it's a bit of a strange one for me when he brought him in. I still don't know if it's a Warne signing. I don't think we will ever know. But he looked really good against Portsmouth. Again, when a team comes at us, that's when he comes alive because he can hit teams on the break. He's got pace and he looks up and he tends to make the right decision a lot of the time in those positions. I mean, his finishing's been dreadful so far, but he's created a lot of chances when he has played, especially against teams that have come at us. So Vic, again, easy one, isn't it? It's just a yes.
Yeah, I mean, like Corey Blackett-Taylor, I think, again, it's similar to Mendes-Laing. I think he needs to call a club his home, and I think hopefully Derby can be that for him. I think we can get the best out of him next season. I think when he joined, I think it was just under some weird circumstances. He sort of had to hit the ground running. He wasn't fit. Hopefully he has a good pre-season behind him and he can hit the ground running in the summer. And I think I'm expecting a big season from him, and it makes the Barkhuizen debate a bit more easier for me, because if I had the choice between the two, I'd rather keep CBT, just because one, he's younger, he can do the same thing Barkhuizen can do, and we know he can score a good goal on his day. So hopefully he can shine next season.
Yeah, I agree with what Vic said there. I think he's definitely going to be able to make the step up, get a Paul Warne pre-season in him. He'll probably be killed over on day one, and wondering why he joined Derby County when he's doing all the run he's doing and wearing that sweat patch that they seem to wear at pre-season as well. That was pictured at the start of last season. But yeah, he's a good player. I think that he will be able to make that step up. He needs a run of games in the team. He needs us as a fan base to back him. He's a confidence player. I think he really feeds off fans and feeds off his teammates. So, yeah, if we can really get behind him, he could be the difference. You never know. And a player like that could be the difference between staying up and going down, or finishing 10th or finishing 6th, or finishing 2nd or something like that. So, yeah, let's get behind him. He's definitely got that X factor, and I think he's going to have a good season.
Yeah, I hope so. I think, like you said, I think we're going to need him in those forward positions. And I'm enjoying Jamie because we can hear you fine, but your picture, we get a new picture of you every 3 or 4 seconds, which is nice. It's like one of those moving picture books, so it's a good experience.
Yeah, you guys are freezing on occasions, but
I don't think it's our fault, mate. I'll give you real with you. Me and Vic are just having a lovely chat in 4K. We've then got Josh Vickers, and now for me, I think this is a no-brainer for me. I'd let him go, and I'd let him go because he wants to play first-team football, and I don't think we can give him that. Obviously, didn't have the easiest time off the pitch, but when he came into the side, he didn't fill me with any confidence. Every time a ball came into the box, he punched it. He couldn't catch a ball, and we barely kept a clean sheet when he was playing. I think our record under him versus Wildsmith, and the percentages are a big difference. He's clearly a good shot stopper, and he's got a ridiculous save in him somewhere. But again, yeah, for me, I don't see the point for us or him and his career if we bring in a new first choice, which is rumoured that we've already got one lined up, and bring in a young second choice, or even promote the likes of Jack Thompson from the academy. I see that as the best option for us. What do you reckon, Vic?
Yeah, I think with Vickers, I think, if I'm being brutally honest, I think League One's his level. I just don't think I could see him make the step up to the Championship. Like you said, good shot stopper. I don't think he can command his area as good as Wildsmith did last season, which is a bit of a concern for me. And again, he hasn't had that time to sort of gel with that back four that's in front of him. So the understanding might not be there. For me, if the right offer comes in, I'd let Vickers go. And like you said, we'll definitely get a new number one in regardless, and maybe we can promote from within. I think that might be the way going forward. So apologies to Vickers, but I think it's time we let go.
Yeah, for me, I think if you're a number 2, you've got to be putting pressure on the number 1, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that next season if we are going to sign a a proven championship goalkeeper or someone that Warne believes can play that level. We all know about his personal circumstances off the pitch. Of course we do. And of course that's going to affect things. But I think he did play, like we said, probably wasn't the best at commanding his box. I didn't think he was that good with his feet either. And I think we all agree there was that Wildsmith or Vickers debate. And I think throughout the season, we just saw that Wildsmith was a lot better. So yeah, I think for me, he's probably got to move on, but I wish him all the best. I hope he goes and gets a club that he can play as a number one and he can kind of start getting his career back on track after a tricky tricky year off the pitch last year.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, he's got a lot of experience in League One. He's sort of been bouncing around League One, League Two for most of his career and has never really established himself in the Championship. And again, it'd be a concern, wouldn't it? If he's our number one going into the season, he's not got the experience and he'll always looked a little bit shaky last season. I mean, Wildsmith ran out and booted a player for no reason about 3 times last season. We still said he was our best number one. So yeah, I think we definitely will bring someone in that position. And someone's put De Gea's without a club still. Well, you never know. You never know. He might take a 280 grand a week wage decrease or something along those lines and come play in the Championship. You never know. And then another relatively easy one, back from his ACL injury. He's been back in full training. He's been doing rehab over the summer as well. Apparently he was very, very bored for the majority of the season because he'd just go in, do his rehab, go home. Didn't really have a lot else to do. But I suppose that's the life of a footballer on the treatment table. Jake Rooney, very easy one, Vic. I think he'll stay and I think he'll play a really big part next season. I think this is his time to really step up and show what he's about.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Jake Rooney, I think there's a lot of potential behind him there. He's got the build. He's very athletic. I think as a centre-back, I think he'll shine. He's a good option to have as a backup to Cashin and Nelson as well. I actually had the opportunity to go watch him train at Moor Farm and even looking in his rehab, he looks sharp and he looks ready. So yeah, he's a definite keep for me.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's a good young player that we need to keep about. Hopefully, you see some players that come back from an ACL injury and you can kind of tell that they've had that injury previously. So hopefully it's not a mental thing for him and he doesn't lose that edge that some players do. I think he's versatile. He learnt to play the guitar, didn't he? So let's hope he doesn't get signed up by a music label. Or Rooney at Plymouth. Maybe Wayne will want to see his, cousin, uncle, brother, I don't know, down on the south coast. But yeah, I think Paul Warne, I think the feeling I get, he really likes Rooney. I think he likes his professionalism, likes his ability. So where we see him, I'm not too sure, but he's a fantastic squad option.
Jamie Page on the wing, Jim Johnson says. You don't want to see that, mate.
It's a
you
great
do
option.
Not want to see that. We think Blackett-Taylor doesn't defend enough. You will learn a new world if you watch Jamie not tracking back for 90 minutes. And we're not going to waste the time talking about Curtis Nelson because we know our answer is yes. He's our player of the year. He's pretty good at football. But we very, very quickly before we finish, just want to touch on Sibley and Collins. Obviously, at time of recording, the decision's not been made yet. I think from Sibley's side, it'll all be about game time. And I don't blame him. He's reached the part of his career where he needs to play. If he doesn't need to leave Derby to do it, then I think he goes with everyone's best wishes because, he's been at the club since the age of 8. He's come all the way through the academy, had some great moments. So, yeah, I think we understand that. Collins is a baffling one for me. I really don't understand it if we do end up keeping him around, unless it's like 5th or 6th choice, because Championship defenders will just dominate him, to be honest. I think there are a lot of games in League One where he's struggled to make any sort of impact, and in the Championship, he's a year older. He's coming up against young, athletic defenders that will just, keep him out of the game. But I just want very quickly from you guys, I want to sell. You can't sell a player without a contract. I want to keep or not keep for Sibley and Collins. Go on, Vic.
For Sibley, I think as a left wing back, 100% keep. I don't think he can do it as a number 10. For Collins, I don't think he'll cut to that Championship level. So get rid, please.
For me, I'd keep Sibley, and if playing time wasn't an issue for him, then I'd keep him and I'd play him in the 10 and give him a chance there, or in an advanced midfield role. And then for Collins, it all depends on Washington for me. I'd rather keep Collins over Washington. If Washington was to go, I'd have Collins as my third choice striker. But I wouldn't keep both of them. So it's all dependent on that. So it's probably likely that that'll be Collins out of the door, because I think we will keep Washington.
Yeah, I think with Collins, it's he's not going to make an impact off the bench. That's the way I see it. He's not got the pace. He doesn't really occupy defenders that much. I mean, especially in open play, he doesn't get in the positions either. He's not, like a Dwight Gale you could bring off the bench and he'll always have that chance. I don't think Collins has that. I don't think he's got that in him, especially at this age. So, yeah, again, he did very well last season. And I think all the fans love him, as you can clearly see on social media. So, yeah, I think if either of them go, they go with our best wishes. But, yeah, personally, I hope Sibley stays. So, that is our entire team. I'm not going to waste my time talking about Darren Robinson and DeJean Brown, because we will keep both of them around. Well, we'll at least own them. Whether they'll go out on loan, we'll see. But I'm sure they'll be in and around the team in pre-season. So, yeah, there we go. That's all the players in Derby squad. There's not many. There's really not many at the minute. I think it's like 16 players. And yeah, so and Tim Allen's just asked if we can give number one Derby fan in Spain, if anyone wants to contest this. Tim says it's David Allen. If anyone wants to contest that, then please let us know. But yeah, good to hear from you, Tim. So right, that is it. We've gone through everyone, all 5 of our players. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like, subscribe. We do Derby stuff every week, 7:00 on a Sunday. So yeah, get involved. Give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Pods if you're feeling generous, and help improve a very nice sunny day that we're all enjoying, I'm sure. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me, but not from James Collins. Hopefully.
I don't know what to say to that. Right, in a bit, guys. See you later.